The first time I saw the playground, my daughter thought it was a miracle. "Dad, look!" Lily screamed from the passenger seat, pressing both hands against the window. They finally built one. Bright red swings moved in the wind. Fresh mulch covered the ground. There was a pirate ship slide, climbing wall, benches, even little solar lights lining the edges. And it sat directly behind my house. Directly on my land. I pulled the truck over so hard my coffee spilled across the dashboard. "No," I whispered. At first, I honestly thought I was mistaken. Because nobody could possibly be stupid enough to build a full playground on property they didn't own. But the second I stepped out of the truck, my stomach dropped. The old oak tree near the fence line was still there. My father's oak tree. Which meant I knew exactly where the property boundary sat. And the entire playground was at least 40 feet inside my land. Lily smiled up at me. "Can we go play?" I couldn't even answer. Because standing beside the playground, holding champagne glasses and laughing with 3 neighbors, was the president of the HOA. Melissa Granger. The woman everyone in the subdivision called Queen Melissa behind her back. Perfect blonde hair. White pantsuit. That fake politician smile. The kind of woman who weaponized politeness. The moment she saw me, her smile vanished. "Oh," she said, "you're home early." I looked around slowly. Workers were still packing tools into trucks. A giant ribbon-cutting banner read, "Cedar Creek Community Children's Park. Community. On my property." I walked toward her carefully. "What is this?" Melissa folded her arms. "The new neighborhood playground. You built it on my land." She laughed immediately. Not nervous laughter. Dismissive laughter. "No, we didn't." "Yes, you did." One of the men beside her whispered something, but she waved him quiet. "Mr. Carter," she said, using that condescending HOA tone, "the HOA reviewed all property maps months ago. That land belongs to the association." "No, it doesn't." "It absolutely does." I pointed toward the oak tree. "My father planted that tree 30 years ago, before this subdivision existed." She shrugged. "Trees don't determine property lines." I stared at her. "You never contacted me." "We mailed notices." "I never received anything." "That sounds like a personal issue." Lily tugged my sleeve. "Dad." I realized neighbors were watching from driveways now. Phones out. Whispering. Melissa noticed too. And suddenly her smile returned. The performance smile. She raised her voice deliberately. "We're simply trying to improve the community for children." There it was. The setup. Make me look like the villain. Single dad attacks children's playground. I could already imagine the Facebook posts. I lowered my voice. "You need to remove it." Her expression hardened instantly. "No." I blinked. "No." The project cost over $200,000. It was approved unanimously. You built on private property. According to our documents, it's HOA recreational space. It's inherited land. Then sue us." The neighbors went silent. Melissa stepped closer. "But I should warn you," she said quietly. "Legal action against the HOA usually doesn't end well for homeowners." Then she smiled again. "Have a lovely evening." She walked away while everyone watched me standing there like an idiot. That night I barely slept. I dug through my father's old filing cabinet until 2 in the morning. Tax records. Boundary maps. Land deeds. And there it was. The original county survey from 1987. Clear as day. The playground sat on our property. Not partially. Entirely. I felt relief for about 10 seconds. Then I realized something worse. Melissa had either lied or never checked anything before spending HOA money. And people like her never admit mistakes quietly. The next morning, I called the county office. A woman named Janet answered. I explained everything. There was silence for a moment. Then she said, "Wait, Cedar Creek HOA." Yeah. Another pause. Oh boy. That phrase made my stomach tighten. What does that mean? Nothing official, she said carefully, but we've had disputes with them before. Can you verify the property lines? Yes, according to county GIS maps, parcel 14B belongs to you. My chest loosened. Thank God. But I hated that word immediately. What? There's a pending amendment filed 6 months ago. My heartbeat stopped. What amendment? Looks like the HOA attempted a boundary adjustment petition. What does that mean? They requested reassignment of the parcel for community use. I nearly dropped the phone. They can't do that. It wasn't approved. But they filed it. Yes. When was I notified? You should have received certified mail. I never got anything. Not one letter. Not one call. Nothing. That's when the first real fear hit me. Because this wasn't an accident anymore. Somebody tried to take my land quietly. And when that failed, they built anyway. 2 days later, I received the HOA violation notice. Not an apology. Not a correction. A violation. Reason: hostile interference with community recreational operations. Fine, $850. Additional note: resident observed intimidating volunteers during family event. I actually laughed reading it. Then another envelope fell out. Second violation: unapproved fence deterioration visible near playground. $300. Third violation: grass height exceeds acceptable community aesthetic. $150. They were coming after me. Vast. By the end of the week, neighbors stopped talking to me. Parents glared when I drove past. Someone posted in the community Facebook group, "Imagine trying to destroy a playground built for children." Melissa replied with a crying emoji and, "Some people care more about money than families." I became the neighborhood monster overnight. Lily noticed too. At dinner she quietly asked, "Are we bad people?" That one hurt more than anything Melissa did. I put my fork down. Why would you ask that? Kids at school said you want to bulldoze the playground. I closed my eyes. My daughter was 8 years old. And HOA politics had reached elementary school. No, I said softly. I just don't want people taking things that don't belong to them. She nodded slowly. Then asked the question I dreaded. Will we lose the house? I didn't answer immediately. Because honestly, I didn't know. The legal consultation cost nearly everything left in my savings. Attorney David Rosen looked exhausted before I even sat down. "You're not my first HOA case this month," he muttered. I handed him the survey. He studied it carefully, then leaned back. "You're right." Relief flooded through me. Good. But that doesn't mean this will be easy. Of course not. Nothing ever is. David explained how HOAs weaponize delay. Endless hearings, fines, liens, court costs, public pressure. They want homeowners to quit before trial, he said. And if I do, they'll escalate. He was right. 3 days later, My mailbox disappeared. The HOA claimed it violated updated visual harmony guidelines. Then they cited my truck for commercial appearance. I drove a normal Ford pickup. Then someone reported my dog barking. I didn't even own a dog. Every day became another punishment. Another fine. Another letter. Another humiliation. And Melissa always appeared nearby smiling calmly, like she was enjoying every second. One afternoon, I caught her near the playground, while Lily and I returned from groceries. Children played behind her. Parents chatted nearby. Melissa folded her sunglasses slowly. Ready to stop this nonsense. I stared at her. You know that land isn't yours. She tilted her head. You know what your problem is, Daniel. Hearing my first name from her felt disgusting. You still think fairness matters. Then she smiled. We already won the public. I looked around. Parents avoided eye contact. Nobody wanted conflict. Nobody wanted truth. They wanted convenience. Melissa stepped closer. Do you know how many families love this playground? That doesn't make theft legal. Maybe not, but perception matters. Then she lowered her voice. You're a single father fighting a neighborhood full of families. She smiled wider. How do you think that looks? That night somebody egged my garage. Lily cried when she saw it. I cleaned it alone at midnight while neighbors watched through windows. The pressure kept building. And somehow, Melissa always knew exactly how far to push. Then came the city inspection. An inspector knocked on my door holding a clipboard. We received anonymous safety concerns. About my house. Of course. He checked wiring, plumbing, foundation, everything. I finally asked, did Melissa Granger send you? He avoided eye contact. I can't disclose complainants. Which meant yes. After 2 hours, the inspector sighed. Honestly, your house is fine. Then he paused. But between you and me, this HOA has influence. I laughed bitterly. No kidding. Before leaving, he quietly added, get a better lawyer. That terrified me, because David already felt expensive. But the inspector's warning stayed in my head all night. So I started researching Melissa. And what I found made my skin crawl. She wasn't just HOA president. She was a real estate developer. 3 LLCs, 2 pending land acquisitions, and 1 failed luxury townhouse proposal 3 years earlier. Location: directly behind my property. I printed everything. Then I found something worse. A planning map. Future expansion route. Straight through my inherited land. The playground was never the goal. It was leverage. If they normalized HOA control over my property, they could eventually absorb the entire parcel. That's when I stopped trying to be nice. I hired a surveyor. Official county-certified measurements. Melissa tried stopping him twice. First by claiming he needed HOA approval. Then by calling local police saying he was trespassing. The officer arrived, checked the deed, and told Melissa to step back. She looked furious. Not embarrassed. Furious. Like someone interrupting a plan. 3 days later, the survey results arrived. Even stronger than the original maps. The playground sat 53 feet inside my boundary. 53. Not a close mistake. Not confusion. Intentional. David filed the lawsuit the next morning. Illegal land use. Property damage. Trespassing. Fraudulent representation. And request for immediate playground removal. The HOA responded within 48 hours. They countersued me for emotional distress to the community. I actually laughed reading that sentence. Then I saw the amount. $2 million. My hands started shaking. They wanted to bury me financially. David rubbed his forehead. This is intimidation. Can they do this? They already did. Court hearings started a month later. Melissa arrived every time dressed like she was campaigning for Senate. Always smiling. Always surrounded by supportive neighbors. I usually sat alone, except for Lily's babysitter sometimes. And David, the HOA attorney, was brutal. Expensive suit. Cold eyes. He treated me like dirt immediately. "Mr. Carter," he said during one hearing, "isn't it true you made aggressive statements toward HOA volunteers?" "No." "Did you or did you not demand destruction of a children's playground?" "Because it's on my property." "So that's a yes." Everything became twisted. Every answer manipulated. Meanwhile, Melissa sat behind him, pretending to look heartbroken. At one point, she actually dabbed fake tears. I wanted to scream, but David warned me constantly. "Stay calm, she wants you emotional." The pressure nearly broke me anyway. Bills piled up. HOA fines reached $23,000. They placed a lien warning on my house. Then my employer called me into the office. Apparently, anonymous complaints claimed I was unstable and threatening children. I stared at my manager in disbelief. "You know me." "I do," he said carefully, "but HR has to investigate." Melissa was attacking every part of my life now. Not just the lawsuit. My reputation. My parenting. My job. My sanity. And worst of all, it was working. One night Lily asked if we should move away. I sat beside her bed silently for a long time. Because I couldn't promise stability anymore. I couldn't promise anything. Then she reached into her backpack and handed me a folded paper. "What's this?" "A picture." I opened it slowly. It showed our house. Me. Sir. And the giant oak tree. Underneath she wrote, "Grandpa said this land protects us." I almost broke right there. Because my father used to say that exact thing. This land protects the family. Suddenly, I realized something. Dad never trusted developers. Ever. Which meant maybe. Just maybe. He prepared for this. The next morning, I drove to the old storage unit we hadn't opened since his death. Dust covered everything. Old furniture. Fishing gear. Boxes. I spent 4 hours searching before finding a locked metal cabinet. Inside were folders labeled with street names, subdivision maps, developer names, HOA complaints. My father had been documenting land disputes for years. Then I found Melissa's name. My pulse spiked. Inside the folder sat emails, printed permits, planning commission notes, and one document circled heavily in red. Cedar Creek expansion proposal. Dated 2 years earlier. It included conceptual sketches for luxury townhomes. Right across my land. I kept digging. Then found the real bombshell. A recorded easement rejection signed by my father before he died. He had refused developer access to the parcel, meaning Melissa's expansion plans died the moment he said no. Everything suddenly clicked together. The playground wasn't random. It was phase 1. Establish community use. Normalize HOA presence. Then eventually argue implied shared access rights. My father knew they'd try something after his death. That's why he kept records. And buried near the bottom of the folder was a flash drive. No label, just black tape. I plugged it into my laptop that night. The screen filled with archived emails. Hundreds of them. Most were boring. Until I found one sent from Melissa. Subject line: once Carter dies, the parcel becomes vulnerable. I froze. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. The email continued. The son won't have resources to resist litigation. Attached beneath it was a projected acquisition estimate. They planned this before my father even died. I immediately called David. He arrived at my house an hour later. We went through everything together. His expression kept getting darker. Then he stopped at one email and whispered, "Oh my God." "What?" He turned the screen toward me. Melissa had written to a developer partner. Even if survey boundaries become an issue, HOA legal can pressure compliance through fines and selective enforcement. David leaned back slowly. This is conspiracy. For the first time since this nightmare started, I saw fear. Not in me. In my lawyer. And that changed everything. The next court hearing felt different immediately. David walked in confident. Melissa still smiled at first, until discovery evidence was introduced. Then I watched her expression flicker. Just slightly. But enough. The judge reviewed several emails silently, then removed his glasses. "Mrs. Granger," he said carefully, "did your HOA knowingly proceed with construction despite unresolved property ownership?" Her attorney immediately interrupted. "Objection. Answer the question." Melissa straightened. "We relied on internal assessments." David slid the certified survey forward. "You mean the assessments that contradicted county records?" Silence. The courtroom shifted. People whispered. For the first time, the perfect HOA image cracked. Then David introduced the expansion proposal maps. Melissa's attorney objected again. Denied. The judge studied the diagrams carefully. These proposed townhomes appear connected to the disputed parcel. David nodded. "Exactly, Your Honor." Melissa finally lost composure. "This is irrelevant speculation." David calmly replied. "Then perhaps Mrs. Granger can explain why her private development company discussed acquiring Mr. Carter's land months before the playground project." Boom! The room exploded with whispers. Melissa looked stunned. Not because the evidence existed. Because we found it. Her attorney requested recess immediately. Denied. Then came the flash drive emails. One by one. Every message worse than the last. Selective enforcement. Pressure tactics. Public manipulation. Even discussions about exhausting me financially until settlement. At one point the judge actually asked, "Did the HOA intentionally target this homeowner?" Nobody answered. Because everybody knew the truth now. Melissa looked pale. The confident queen of Cedar Creek was disappearing in real time. Then David pulled out the final document. And even I hadn't seen this one before. "What's that?" I whispered. He smiled slightly. "Your father was smarter than all of them." The document was a recorded legal affidavit, filed quietly 8 years earlier. My father anticipated future encroachment attempts. So he commissioned permanent geospatial markers installed beneath the property. Tamper-proof county coordinates. Legally verified forever. Meaning there was never any ambiguity about the boundary. Ever. The playground was knowingly built on protected private land. Melissa's attorney looked physically sick. Then David delivered the killing blow. Your Honor, we are now requesting punitive damages for fraudulent conduct, abuse of HOA authority, conspiracy to interfere with property rights, and intentional emotional distress. The judge nodded slowly. Melissa finally spoke. Her voice cracked for the first time. This is absurd. David turned toward her calmly. No, Mrs. Granger. Then he pointed toward me. What's absurd is terrorizing a widowed single father because you thought he'd be easy to crush. Complete silence. Even the judge looked angry now. Court adjourned for deliberation. And outside the courthouse, everything changed. Reporters waited near the steps. Apparently someone leaked the story online during proceedings. Neighbors who once ignored me suddenly avoided Melissa instead. Parents whispered while staring at her. The narrative flipped overnight. By morning, local headlines read, HOA accused of illegal land grab scheme. Then former residents started coming forward. More complaints. More selective fines. More intimidation stories. Melissa's empire started collapsing publicly. 3 HOA board members resigned within 48 hours. Property values in Cedar Creek began dropping. And suddenly, everyone wanted distance from Melissa Granger. The final ruling came 2 weeks later. I'll never forget the courtroom that morning. Melissa looked exhausted. No makeup could hide it anymore. The judge entered quietly and began reading. The HOA was found liable for unlawful encroachment, fraudulent misconduct, abuse of authority, intentional harassment, and conspiracy related to property acquisition efforts. Then came the damages. Full playground removal costs paid by HOA. All liens erased. All fines voided. Emotional distress compensation. Legal fees covered. Punitive damages. Total judgment. $4.8 million. Someone gasped behind me. Melissa closed her eyes slowly. But the judge wasn't finished. He also referred evidence to the state attorney for further investigation into fraud and corruption. That part hit Melissa hardest. Because money hurts. But criminal investigations destroy futures. Outside court, reporters surrounded everyone. Melissa refused questions. She practically ran to her car. And for the first time since this started, nobody followed her. Nobody defended her. Nobody clapped for her fake smiles. She was alone. Completely alone. David shook my hand. You survived. I looked across the parking lot where Lily waited with the babysitter. Barely. A month later, the playground was demolished. Parents complained at first, until the truth spread completely. Then something unexpected happened. Several neighbors approached me privately. Apologies. Real ones. One father looked ashamed. We thought you were lying. I nodded. I know. Another neighbor admitted Melissa controlled everything through fear. People worried about fines, violations, retaliation. That's how bullies survive. Not through strength, through intimidation. But intimidation only works until evidence appears. The best moment came later that summer. Lily and I stood near the old oak tree watching workers restore the damaged grass. Are we safe now? She asked. I looked at the land my father protected his entire life. The land Melissa tried stealing. The land nearly everyone turned against us over. And finally, I smiled. Yeah, I said softly. We are now. Then Lily looked up at the oak tree branches moving in the wind. Grandpa was right. I swallowed hard. About what? She smiled. This land protects the family.